On your feet! Get them going!
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Whatever the case may be, sorry I'm late, but that's me. Stayed up way too late. We were watching TV, me and the wife, and is it TV? Do you still call it TV? I mean, it's on the TV, but it's not like broadcast. It's like, streaming stuff. You still call that television? It's not broadcast television, it's like streaming television. I don't even know. I'm not a pastor, priest, rabbi, theologian, or prophet, or whatever else you got. I'm not I'm just a guy on the internet talking about the Bible and stuff. And for some reason, you show up and ask me questions, which is great. I love it. Hey, Amy, Dark Admiral, Tina T, Objective Ethics. See, if I say it slow, I can say it well. March Hare, Tanner. Hey, Mike. Question: have you watched the My Hero Academia TV show? I think I either started to watch it, or I just watched a little bit of it while my son was watching it, but I have not watched the whole thing. No. I absolutely love that. It's like, see, it's super popular. It's a superhero thing. It's like, it's got nothing to do with superhero fatigue. It's just how it's done, right? Anime, manga, most of anime and manga, I'm not going to say most of it, but a lot of anime and manga they're superhero stories. They're just dressed up different. Naruto is like X-Men Academy, right? Everybody has their own superpowers. Everybody, has their training for their missions and their blah, blah, blah. But they just call it ninjutsu, which is ridiculous because ninjutsu doesn't give you superpowers. But they just put superpowers in a different context with a different source of the power. And it's all just superhero stuff. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's just, Hamon is my superpower. Hamon, what does your Hamon give you for superpower? It's like, that's all those things are just superhero stories dressed up in a more unique fashion. And I love it. That's great. I mean, like in Lone Star, right? In Lone Star is the only one who kind of dresses up. He doesn't really dress up. Okay, he does at the end. That's a spoiler. But oh my gosh, I have to stop drinking this coffee first thing in the morning. It's the one with the ginseng and the guarana. And I mixed it so it was half and half. But man, that's all I drank, and I'm like lightheaded already. What am I doing to myself? Anyways, so Lone Star, they have the superpowers, but they're soldiers. So it's like a soldier's super. I mean, honestly, it's weird. It's weird that Jawbreakers was kind of the same idea, except in Jawbreakers, that's somebody else's book. Jawbreakers, they were already superheroes, and then they signed up. Like, I guess, like superheroes stopped being a thing, so they signed up for the military. But in mine, that's the source of their power comes from a secret government agency. So, anyways, probably not a topic for today. Anybody else pop in? Zeta, what's up? My Hero is a fun show ruined by its fan base. How so? I don't know about these things. Objective Ethics says, Mike, I watched a video the other day where you mentioned having a personal issue to deal with. I hope things worked out in your favor, brother. It looks like everything has worked out, Objective Ethics. Thank you very much. But I will get a final confirmation today. I should be on the phone right now dealing with it, but Actually, I haven't even checked my email. Have I? Let's see if I got a message about it. Have not gotten an email about it yet, so just waiting for that. It looks like everything's copacetic, so thank you for your thoughtful consideration. Still going back and forth with this. Here's a thing. Still going back and forth with this Mormon dude. Meaning this is the longest any Mormon has stuck it out to have the argument about adoption, which I think is great. So I actually want to read his argument to you guys. Actually, I'm going to bring it over here. I'm not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to read it to you. He says, can you first confirm if this is the point you are arguing, that the Book of Mormon teaches we are biologically Heavenly Father's children. Therefore, because we are biologically his children, we cannot be adopted. Is that correct? And I said, I never said biologically, but by nature. LDS teaching, going back over a century, declares that all human beings are spirit children of Elohim and one of his unnamed goddess wives. Then I quote, in 1909, the first presidency, the church's highest governing body, issued a statement affirming that all men and women are in the similitude of the universal Father and Mother and are literally the sons and daughters of deity. This was further reinforced in 1995 document, The Family, a proclamation to the world, an official church declaration, though not canonized as scripture, which states, all human beings, male and female, are created in the image of God. Each is beloved spirit, son, or daughter of heavenly parents, and as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. It might not be in the Book of Mormon, but you guys do believe in your ongoing revelation, so you can't beg out of it with the it's not in scripture argument. And to the rest of your question, yes, if you are literally the sons and daughters of deity, meaning God the Father, you cannot then be adopted to be a son or daughter. Adoption has a singular meaning. To it, Lee responds, we are all spiritual sons and daughters of Heavenly Father and Mother. Now, it doesn't explicitly state a Heavenly Mother in the Bible, but just because we are spiritual sons and daughters doesn't mean we automatically receive everything. The fall of Adam separated us from God. I don't know why this is split up. Then I quoted the 1909 First Presidency thing again and said, literally, your doctrine by your prophet says literally the sons and daughters of God. Because he was saying spiritually. Not figuratively, not just spiritually. You know this is the doctrine you have been taught. I applaud you for trying to find some way to wiggle out of it, but you simply cannot. Scam likely. To it, he responds, we are still naturally his children, but we, because of the fall of Adam, we need a Redeemer to reconcile us to Heavenly Father. That is where Jesus Christ and his atonement comes in. We are adopted by God through Jesus Christ. Through Jesus Christ, we can return back to God. And this was what I just posted before I came on. That's part of why I was late. First of all, please allow me to applaud you for sticking this out. You are the first LDS member who has not run away from this debate within minutes. So thanks for that sincerely. You are, however, still not explaining how someone is capable of losing their natural sonship. Joseph Stalin's parents were still his parents after he killed tens of millions of people and starved millions of his own citizens. No matter your sin or disgrace, even if a natural parent says they disown you, you are still their natural child, regardless of whether you inherit a thing. There is no mechanism, method, or doctrine of religion by which a child will no longer be the natural child of their natural parents. It is by nature the very nature of the relationship. So again, by the very definitions of the words being used, and you have not found a way to get away from these definitions, We must be adopted to become, not be restored to the position of, children of God. The reconciliation between God and man is, as you pointed out, about the sin of Adam breaking humanity's bond with God. Thus, we are all sons of Adam, not sons of God. The question for LDS becomes, how can we be held accountable for the sins of Adam if we are directly the sons of God? How can his mistake be laid upon us? Though that is a different question. I don't want to derail. Your answer just made me think about that. Yeah, all right. So this has been going on literally for days. This is the first time a Mormon has stuck it out for days in this discussion. Now, he doesn't like go back and forth with me all day long. He like answers and then answers the next day. But interesting. I hope you guys aren't bored with the Mormon dilemma. I'm rather enjoying it. I mean, there are shows on a small screen at home. That's a yeah, that's TV. That's what I call it too, a TV. Now, there's the question. Is a monitor a TV? If you're watching something on your computer, are you saying you're watching TV? Are you saying you're watching something on the computer? It's just a monitor. So these are no longer televisions the way televisions were invented. They're all just giant monitors now, which is weird. Monitors with speakers. This is a pedantic argument that no one should actually care about. Jojo only really uses hamon in the first two parts. The rest is stands, but I get the point. Yeah. Uh-oh, Mike all jacked up on caffeine today. It's not the caffeine. It's the B vitamins, the was it guarana? And the ginseng. I think that's what's going zoom. Are there any superheroes anywhere that have a full white outfit? I don't know if it's Moon Knight. Moon Knight's costume is all white. The character in Mark Miller's new book, Nemesis. Is it Nemesis? It's not Nemesis. I can't remember the name of it, but I think his is all white. MTO, welcome. Yahweh means I am who I am. Could that be interpreted as God being a good self-image you have to build on? I don't think so. I don't think so. I would just say no. God saying I am who I am is sort of like there's no greater definition of who God is than who God is. Right? But there's better versions of man than me. So, and just having a good self-image of yourself, I don't think that's even I think people should have a realistic self-image of themselves. I think that's what God's doing right there. Corpse Grinder, Asherah was God's wife. He wasn't Yahweh's wife. What's up, Corpse Grinder? Yes, but Asherah was also Yahweh's mother when she was the consort of El, Yahweh's father. It was a family affair. Where are you getting this mythology? And by the way, that's mythology. You can watch TV programs on a monitor. Fair point. And I still call UFOs based. Arthur Everest, a.k.a. Mothman from The Tick, is in all white. Aren't his straps gray? Yeah, source. Trust me, bro. Now let's go look it up. Where are people getting this idea? Let me find my Grok. Grok is so much fun for this kind of stuff. It's like All right. Where does the belief that Asherah was Yahweh's mother and the consort of El come from? This is the super slow answer. I'm gonna click quick answer so we don't have to wait all day. They get it from their atheist Dawa leaders. This is the original henotheistic beliefs of the Hebrews when they were living in the land of Canaan prior to their migration. According to what documentation? The belief that Asherah was Yahweh's mother and the consort of El originates from a combination of ancient Near Eastern religious texts, archaeological findings, and scholarly interpretations of Canaanite and Israelite religious practices. This idea is rooted in the complex interplay between Canaanite and Israelite religious traditions, particularly in the pre-monotheistic phases of the Israelite religion. Below is a detailed explanation of the origins of this belief. Canaanite context in Asherah and as El's consort. Asherah, known as Asirat in Ugaritic texts, was a prominent goddess in the Canaanite pantheon, widely worshipped in ancient Syria and Palestine. There was no ancient Palestine. Philistia, ancient Philistia. In Ugaritic mythology, I don't want to argue with Grok, but in Ugaritic mythology from the city of Ugarit, modern Ras Shamra, Syria, Asherah is depicted as the consort of El, the chief god of the Canaanite pantheon and the mother of 70 gods, earning her the title Creatrix of the Gods or Mother Goddess. Her epithets, such as She Who Walks on the Sea or Lady Atharat of the Sea, highlighted her divine status and association with fertility, motherhood, and the sea. This Canaanite framework is crucial because early Israelite religion was heavily influenced by surrounding Canaanite culture. El, as the supreme deity in Canaanite religion, was often equated with or merged into the Israelite concept of Yahweh, especially as Israelite religion evolved from polytheism or henotheism towards monotheism. As a result, Asherah's role as El's consort was sometimes transferred to Yahweh in certain Israeli contexts, particularly in popular or folk religion. Hold on a second. All right, let me get back up to that while that thinks. I'm asking you what the facts that is based on are. Archaeological evidence. Yahweh and his Asherah. Significant archaeological discoveries from the 8th and 9th century BC provide evidence that some Israelites viewed Asherah as closely associated with Yahweh. From 8th and 9th. Well, I mean, in the Bible, it says that the Israelites themselves would go after other gods, and one of them was Asherah. So this isn't... And this is 5 centuries after Moses. Inscriptions found at 2 key sites, Kunalet Ajurd in the Sinai Desert and Kirbat El Kom in the West Bank, include phrases like Yahweh of Samaria and his Asherah, Yahweh of Teman and his Asherah. These inscriptions, dated to around the 8th century BC, suggested that Asherah was venerated alongside Yahweh, potentially as his divine partner in some regional Israelite practices. Again, this is 500 years after the Torah, and it says explicitly over and over and over again that the Jews went after other gods. So this fits right in with what the Bible teaches. However, the interpretation of his Asherah is debated. Also, Asherah in the Bible is one of the false gods that Elohim is used to describe. So I think twice in the Bible, Elohim is used of gods other than God. Is debated. Some scholars argue that Asherah refers to the goddess herself, implying she was worshipped as Yahweh's consort. Others contend that Asherah refers to a cultic object such as a sacred pole or tree, symbolizing the goddess rather than the deity herself. The possessive suffix in Hebrew, his Asherah, is unusual for proper names, which fuels the debate over whether it denotes a goddess or a symbol. Am I thinking Ashtoreth? Hold on, let me look that up real quick. I'm going to look it up in Blue Letter Bible because I know... Or Ashtaroth. Am I confusing my character, my names? Elohim would be... Let's look up gods. Yeah, it's the same word when he says, ye shall be as gods. Not as God. Elohim. So Elohim. Angels exceeding goddess. This is twice used. And I believe that is used of Ashtoreth. I'm sorry. My apologies. It's Ashtoreth. So it's used of Ashtoreth, Chemosh, Milcom, yeah. So at least in this verse, it's used. The word Elohim is used of other gods. That's why I say it's the general word or generic word for God, not the specific name of God. Where did I put my... Okay. A speculative hypothesis, Asherah as Yahweh's mother. The idea that Asherah was Yahweh's mother, in addition to being El's consort, is less widely supported, but emerges from specific scholarly interpretations of Canaanite and Israelite theology. In Ugaritic mythology, Asherah, as the mother of gods, could theoretically be considered the mother of all deities in the Canaanite pantheon, including younger gods like Baal or, hypothetically, Yahweh. If he were originally part of this pantheon, some scholars, such as Margaret Barker, propose that early Israelites may have regarded Asherah as Yahweh's mother, based on her role as mother goddess in Canaanite religion and the merging of El and Yahweh in Israelite theology. Except, again, that your evidence for this is 500 years younger than the Torah. For example, Barker argues that Kuntilet Ajrud inscriptions, which describe Asherah as a singular figure without regional variants, unlike Yahweh's of Samaria or of Teman, might suggest she was perceived as a higher universal deity, potentially Yahweh's mother rather than his consort. This view posits that Yahweh was originally the son of El and Asherah in a polytheistic framework before being elevated to the supreme deity in Israelite religion. With Asherah's role as mother being overshadowed by later monotheistic forms. This hypothesis is speculative and controversial, as there is no direct textual evidence in the Hebrew Bible or Ugaritic text explicitly stating that Asherah was Yahweh's mother. Instead, it relies on the assumption that Yahweh was once a subordinate deity in a Canaanite-like pantheon, with El as his father and Asherah as his mother, before El and Yahweh were conflated. The lack of clear creation stories for Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible or Ugaritic text makes this idea difficult to substantiate definitively. Without Lies says, incorrect. This is prior to the Exodus myth. As Mike just read it, is from the migration of Canaan. Pay attention. Prior to migration, meaning after the 400 years of slavery in Egypt, and when they went into Canaan and slaughtered them. Hold on, let's see what you guys are saying. All right. Incorrect. This is prior to the Exodus myth. Prior to the Exodus, okay, you have absolutely no credible argument that Exodus is a myth. You think like millions of Jews just sprouted up out of the desert. When are you dating the authorship of the Torah? 14th century BC. Speculative hypothesis is basically a fact for an atheist. Yeah. See, that's the funny thing. I mean, this is clearly speculative hypothesis, uncorroborated, but objective ethics, you rolled in here saying it as if it was a fact taught to you by God himself. Interesting. The tetragrammaton might be a derivation. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause to become, or come to pass. Could that mean similarity is coincidental? Mm-hmm. The Bible speaks about Baal, B-A-A-L, as a real God. Yahweh himself spoke about Baal as being real. Can you give me chapter and verse, Joseph? Oh, wow. No credible scholar puts the Torah that late. By credible scholar, you mean scholars you're willing to agree with? Is that what you mean by credible? Because credible to you and credible to me may not be the same thing. Hold on. Let me scroll down to key facts. There are no facts derived from a God. PC Joseph, that wasn't the question. Can you go back? You said the Bible speaks of Baal as a real God. Can you give me chapter and verse where it says that? Also, again, El is not the proper name of God. So El could be. It's as much a name of God as Allah is, which obviously I don't prescribe to that, but it's the generic name for God. So I don't care if it's in some other. It's in some other pantheon. Geographical facts support the theory. Israelites emerged in the southern Levant around the late 13th to 12th century in a region dominated by Canaanite city-states. So they emerged, all right, here's the thing. Put the emergence at the 13th century. That would put, you subtract 40 years from the 13th century, you're getting at least very, very close to the 14th century BC. So I put it at 14, 13, whatever. I don't have an exact date on it. Shared religious terminology. The Hebrew Bible uses terms and concepts that parallel Canaanite region. For example, the name El appears frequently in the Hebrew Bible, often as a title for the Israelite God, suggesting that the Canaanite high god El was adopted or merged into Israelite concept of Yahweh. I mean, honestly, this is a language thing. I'm not entirely sure what Abram spoke. I would think it was Hebrew, but he came from essentially Saudi Arabia. Abram came from Ur, Chaldea. Let me just ask, what language was spoken in Ur of Chaldea in Abraham's day? Do we know for certain? So one would presume that the question of what language was spoken in Ur of the Chaldees during Abraham's time is complex, as it depends on the historical chronological context of Abraham, who is a figure rooted in the biblical tradition, but whose traditional biblical timeline places roughly in the 2nd millennium BCE, 2000 to 1800 BC, though some scholars propose later dates. Ur of the Chaldees, typically identified with ancient Mesopotamian city of Ur. Languages spoken in Ur. Sumerian. Evidence. Sumerian language was a language of the Sumerian people who dominated southern Mesopotamia during the 3rd millennium BC. During the Ur third period, Sumerian was official language of the administration. Status in Abraham's time, Sumerian was likely no longer a widely spoken vernacular language, but remained prestigious, liturgical, and scribal language, similar to Latin in medieval Europe, used in official record, blah, blah, blah. Relevant. Sumerian would have been spoken or understood by priests, scribes, and elites in Ur. What was not likely the everyday language of the general population by Abraham's time. Akkadian, an East Semitic language, was increased dominant in Mesopotamia during the 2nd millennium BC. It was the language of the Akkadian Empire and became the lingua franca of the region during the Old Babylonian period. Cuneiform tablets from Ur and nearby cities show a shift towards Akkadian for administrative, legal, and personal documents. Status in Abraham's time. Akkadian was likely the primary spoken language in Ur, especially among the general population's merchants and non-elite classes. It was used in everyday communication, trade, and increasingly in written language. Amorite. I'm just going to skip to status in Abraham's time. Amorite, a West Semitic language related to later Hebrew, Aramaic, and Canaanite languages, was likely spoken by Amorite tribes or communities in and around Ur. It may have been a minority language in urban centers like Ur, but it was significant at the border region, especially in northern Mesopotamia and the Levant. So I would guess, since this is the one that seems most related to Hebrew itself, which is where we ultimately get to, that Abram likely spoke Amorite. I mean, I'm not exactly throwing. None of these other ones seem to be related to Hebrew at all. But that also means that what did it say? It said that Semitic language is related to later Hebrew, Aramaic, and Canaanite languages. So if the root source of those languages is Amorite, does the word name for God El derive from the Amorite language? Etymology and meaning of El. Linguistic root. The term El is generally understood to derive from a Proto-Semitic root, often reconstructed as Il or El, meaning God or deity. This root is associated with divinity and authority across Semitic languages. So yeah, that's as far as I need to go there. As I have been saying this entire time, El is just the generic name for God. Why does it say hide? Why do I? Oh, because I have it up on the screen. PC Joseph, I think that's presumptuous. It mentions Baal and that he is regarded as real. Several instances in the Bible expect Baal to prove his existence. That implies followers of God did not believe in him. Justin says, well, when God, real, objects to Israel following other gods, fake, it's in the terms that Israel refers to them. Objective ethics. The Exodus myth is a story invented during the exile 7th century BC and is based on Hyksos' exile from Egypt, roughly 1400 BC. That's what I'm saying, is that the Exodus is roughly 1400 BC. So you're saying there was another Exodus, and what happened to those people? All right, let's go Hyksos exile. Quick answer. I don't want to wait all day. Grok has been doing this thing now where it takes us really a long time. Hebrew. Who were the Hyksos, likely of West Semitic, Canaanite, or Aram, who migrated into the Nile Delta of Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period? They established the 15th dynasty of Egypt, ruling from their capital in the Eastern Delta. The term Hyksos comes from the Egyptian Heka Kasut, meaning rulers of foreign lands. They were not a single ethnic group, but a coalition of Semitic-speaking peoples, possibly including Amorites, Canaanites, or other Levantine groups who integrated with local Egyptian populations. Archaeological evidence from areas such as Canaanite-style pottery, weapons, and architecture confirms their Levantine origins. They introduced technologies like horse-drawn chariot and composite bow to Egypt. The Hyksos rule in exile. The Hyksos rose to power during a period of political instability in Egypt, taking control of Lower Egypt. While native Egyptian dynasties ruled over Upper Egypt, they coexisted within the 13th and 14th centuries, later ruled as the 15th dynasty. Around 1550 BC, the native Egyptian pharaoh Ahmose I, founder of the 18th dynasty, launched a campaign to expel the Hyksos, according to Egyptian sources such as the inscriptions of Ahmose I and later accounts of the historian Manana. Okay. All right, what's the correlation? What that doesn't seem like it's correlated. I mean, time-wise, although you're wrong, it said, well, according to this, what did it say? It said 15, was it 1550? Migrated. Oh, no, they migrated there, established in the 1550s. Where did it say they were? Where does it say they left? Exile. Launch campaign to expel. Okay, so that was 1550. They were exiled. Oh, shoot. I apologize. I have to take this. Yeah, that was something else. So that was roughly 1550, which I would say the Hebrews were still there, right? Because it was 400 years, and they were expelled roughly in 14th century, or not expelled. The Exodus, I think, was roughly 14th century, and then 40 years, and then 40 years in the desert. Anyways, I think the Bible just talks about people following someone named Baal and building idols for someone they called Baal. I was trying to find something yesterday about Baal and reading to no avail. I may be wrong. No, you're right. Are you familiar with Dr. J. Smith? No, I am not, student of God. Who's J. Smith? Teacher says, what does that imply about the history leading up to 700 BC, since most of the Old Testament is contingent upon Exodus? That seems like a lot of work to disprove so much information on that one assertion. Yeah. Also, there's an interesting fact here. The tomb of Rachel. You assert biblical Exodus is a historical event, and then the burden of proof is on you. Okay. The tomb of Rachel. I believe it's the tomb of Rachel. Am I wrong? The tomb of Rachel. See, here's the thing. Everything we can find confirms. Everything archaeologically that we can find confirms the Bible's stories. There's never been anything that contradicted the Bible stories throughout the entire Bible, throughout all of archaeology. You've never found anything that contradicted. At a certain point, you have to go, well, gosh, since everything so far has been corroborated, what is my argument for saying that someday, this is like the abiogenesis, someday someone will figure out how abiogenesis is possible. This is the anti-biblical archaeologist argument. Someday someone will find something in archaeology to contradict the Bible. Meanwhile, archaeologists are out there using the Bible as a guidebook to find things because it's so accurate to history. The tomb of Rachel. You know who Rachel is? Rachel was one of Isaac's wives, right? You know Isaac was Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Wait, was it Isaac's wife or Jacob's wife? Whose wife was Rachel? Oh, I think it was Jacob. Because Jacob is the one. Jacob's wife. Yes, my apologies. Jacob's wife. So prior to going to Egypt, right? Jacob had his 12 kids. One of them was Joseph. He ended up taken to Egypt, right? How do we have any evidence without lies? That was ridiculous. What is it? All right, let me just share a tiny little archaeological problem with claiming that, like, say, this is the thing. It's like, could Egypt have deleted the mentions of Hebrews, the mentions of Moses, all of that stuff easily? Because history is written by the victors. And when the God of the Hebrews smites your entire army, you tend not to want to share that with people. But you know what they can't get rid of? Rachel's tomb, which is still exactly where the Bible says it was, and which has been venerated for thousands of years. You can go to Israel today and visit. That's a stupid painting. You can go and visit Rachel's tomb. Oh, there's a picture of it in 1942. There's a picture of it probably today. Jacob's wife's body is in this box. The mother of Israel is in that box. And they've been visiting it for thousands of years. You can't get away from all the archaeological evidence that proves constantly that the biblical story is true. So to sit there and claim that, oh yeah, all this other stuff is true, but, you know, that whole thing with the Jews in Egypt and them leaving in Exodus and how that's all fake. But yeah, then they do, yeah, sure, they appear in the Levant after that with millions of people, but, you know, that's all, they just sprouted up out of the tomb. Rebecca? Oh, here's your argument. Rebecca, the girl who was married by a 40-year-old man? Well, she wouldn't have been a girl by that age, right? Because he had to work. Let's see. Rachel's the one he loved. And Rachel was the older sister. And almost out of... Actually, how old was Jacob? That's a good question. Let me go to Grok for that. It's just the argument that you're trying to dismiss chunks of the Bible. Archaeology Go have a word with archaeology. Honestly. Yeah, let's look it up. How old was Rachel? How old was Rebecca when Jacob married her? Oh my gosh. Does not explicitly state Rebecca's age when she married Isaac, nor does it provide a clear age for when Jacob was born or later events. Yeah. Genesis 25:20 states that Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebecca, but her age is not specified. And then he didn't marry Rachel until 7 years after that. So women typically married in their mid-tweens, between 14 and 20 years old. That was standard practice. Men, especially those higher status like Isaac, often married later in their 20s or 30s, as seen with Isaac's age of 40. So, Lush Farmer, there you go, is still a child. Well, in the modern context, 14 is a child, because in the modern context, people live with their parents until they're 30. In the context of ancient Mesopotamia, Egypt, all of the Middle East, pretty much all of the world, almost 4,000 years ago, everyone got married at 14. That was not considered child back then. You're thinking with a modern subjective framework. So you are condoning it. Yes, I'm condoning that the entire planet had different standards 4,000 years ago. Thanks for playing. Freaking insane. Rebecca was not 3. Just read the context. She's drawing a bunch of water from wells. Silly Muslims and atheists using the same arguments. A child is a child, buddy. Actually, a child is a child. An adolescent is an adolescent. And an adult is an adult. A 14-year-old is not a child. I hate to break this to you, but the words have meaning. A child is not 14 years old. A child in modern context I look at a 21-year-old and I go, you're just a child, right? It's because I'm 53. But literally, you can go look this up, Lush Farmer, because you seem to be completely ignorant of everything in history. Literally, 14 was the age of marriage in almost every culture on the planet. Actually, let's look it up. When did cultures around the world stop viewing 14-year-old girls as marriageable age? Let's see what Grok thinks. You know what a pedophile is? Another arrogant Christian. Look who, I'm the arrogant one. Cultural norms. In many ancient and medieval societies, girls were considered marriageable at or shortly after puberty, around 12 to 14, as this was seen as one of the onset of reproductive maturity. Marriage at this age was tied to economic need, patriarchal structures. I would think that would be patriarchal, but no, patriarchal structures, and short life expectancies, which encouraged early childbearing. In ancient Rome, the legal marriage age was 12 for girls. In medieval Europe, the Roman Catholic Church allowed girls to marry at 12 with parental consent. In the 19th century Levant, girls often married before 16, though this declined with modernization. 19th century. 19th century, Levant. In many traditional societies, parts of Africa, South Asia, marriage at 14 was common due to economic and cultural factors, such as bride price or dowry systems. Regional shifts away from 14 as marriageable age, the transition away from marrying 14-year-old girls occurred at different times and rates globally, influenced by industrialization, education, women's rights movements, and legal reforms. Below is a breakdown by region. I'm not even going to bother doing this. That you're making this argument is retarded, Loosh Farmer. Retarded. Time to move on from primitive religion and beliefs. Well, we don't still marry girls at 14. Hell, girls don't get married till they're 30 now. It's retarded. Just like you. I did know. I was just looking it up in Grok to show you that you're stupid. I'm sorry. That's way out of line. You're not stupid. You're just retarded. What's your stance on women unaliving their own babies in the womb for convenience? Curious. Yes, he is a spam farmer. PC Joseph. To look at an ancient book that considers a girl who has her first period as a woman is absurd. We have grown up as a species. No need for that old junk. Once again, this was the practice of this planet called Earth. Right? We have this entire planet. It's populated with people of all kinds, different religions, different skin colors, different dogmas, different everything. The entire planet, first of all, practiced slavery. Considered 14 down to 12 marriageable age. Now, Muhammad, on the other hand, married a girl when she was 6 playing with dolls and then consummated it when she was still playing with dolls because she was only 9 years old. That, Loosh Farmer, is a pedophile. Why don't you go cry about that? Yes, tag and all other philosophical arguments are used by Christians because they don't have any empirical evidence to support their claims. I literally just showed you Rachel's tomb. How much more empirical does it get than the very tomb in whose body lays the mother of the 12 tribes? Well, not the 12. She only birthed 2 of them. Of the 2 of the 12 tribes of Israel. How much more empirical can you get than physical reality? Objective. You said you're objective. Be objective here. Be a little objective. Adam Price. I think it aligns with modern education, i.e. girls getting through high school before a pregnancy. I'm sure that's part of it. But you Christians say that Aisha was 6. No, I don't say that. Mormons, not Mormons. Islam says that. Islam's holy books say that Aisha was 6. And that he consummated that marriage at 9. Do you know the difference between a 9-year-old and a 14-year-old, Loosh? Do ya? See, that's the difference between a child and an adolescent. And I grew up in the 80s. A huge percentage of the adolescents I knew were banging. And guilty as charged. Without lies, it is a fallacy to think you can define something into existence. All your arguments are based on your definitions. Is this just my definition? Is this my imagination? Ethics? You see what's on the screen, right? Do you think I'm making this up? Do you think that the Jews and the Hebrews throughout the last 4 centuries have been making up that that's Rachel's tomb, exactly where the Bible says it is? And that they've been venerating, or not venerating, but, going and praying. It's like the Wailing Wall. They go and pray at this tomb, the mother of Israel, for 4 centuries, and is this just all in my head? Where's the objective part of your ethics right now? Atheists are stuck trying to prove God doesn't exist or is evil while trapped in a worldview that can't even ground truth or morality in the first place. Liar! About what? What did I lie about? Tell me what I lied about. Buddy Rabbit says, I'm just getting Mike jokes versus Daniel Hakikatajo. Flashbacks. Huh? I don't know what that is. Sahi al-Bukhari, 5134, proof for Muhammad sleeping with a 9-year-old. Yeah. Do you need me to literally quote it out of the Islamic text? Are you a Muslim, Lush? Are you a Muslim who is crying about 14-year-olds versus a 53? I'm 53. I'm 53. If I consummated anything with a 9-year-old, I would hope you would take me out back and put a bullet in my head. That was Muhammad. Muhammad was, in fact, a pedophile. Objective ethics. Finding a tomb doesn't prove the Exodus myth to be true, nor does finding tribes of Israel mean the supernatural claims of the Bible are true. You're not being skeptical of all. No, I'm saying you can take the supernatural stuff out of it if you like, right? You can find naturalistic explanations. I've seen History Channel stuff. I think it was History Channel, where they tried to find naturalistic explanations for all of the everything that happened in the Exodus. And look, fine. If you want to try to say that was all, none of that had. Look, this is like the difference between the accounts on, is it the Babylonian accounts or something like that? There's corroboration in, I think it's Babylon. I could be totally wrong. On some stele that corroborates the stories of, or is it the Amorites? Whatever. It was one of the battles in the Bible of the Hebrews versus like the Amorites or something like that. And it's written on a stele. It's like 850 BC, something like that. And here's the difference. From the Amorite perspective, this is just a thing that happened. From the Jewish perspective, this is the thing that God made happen. Right? So you're arguing about perspectives and things that you don't believe. You don't believe there's a God involved. Okay, take that out of it. Just use the times and the places and the things that happened. Archaeology has never proven any of that wrong. And it's not for lack of trying. Trust me. Or don't trust me. There's people like you, people probably more anti-biblical than you, who would love to find something in archaeology that can contradict any of the events. Never mind the supernatural part, any of the events in the Bible. They have never found anything. I defy you to try to find me something. Archaeology has proven the events of the Bible over and over and over again for hundreds of years. On what standing do you sit there and claim that doesn't prove anything? Well, you're not saying that. You're saying it doesn't prove the Exodus myth. No, I'm saying that at a certain point in time, when something has been proven over and 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 over, almost infinitely, to be historically accurate, at some point, ethics, at some point, you have to start giving that source of information the benefit of the doubt. Otherwise, you're not being objective or skeptical. You're just being cynical. Do you want to be cynical or do you want to be objective? You can't be both. We're at an hour. Gosh darn, I really wanted to talk to Loosh Farmer more. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. This is exactly why I am agnostic. Nothing is known or can be known about any god or any other supernatural phenomenon. All right. Then just go by the facts. Go by the facts. Ignore the supernatural part and just go by the events. Just go by the events. Read the stories for the events rather than the explanations, is basically what I'm saying, right? The events are constantly corroborated. Therefore, you literally have zero reason to claim the events didn't happen that have not yet been corroborated, because the Bible as a historical document has been proven ad nauseum to be a trustworthy historical document, regardless of how it happened. That it happened has been proven. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. God bless you all. We'll see you on the next exciting episode of Cross Examinations.